All right. Welcome to everyone. Let me make sure my video cam is on. I think you can hear me. I'm unsure if you can see me. Let's see. So I hope that you can. I am not seeing where, let's see, you can just let me check just really quickly to make sure that you all can see me right now. And there we go. I realized that I had some blocking my webcam and I could not figure out why. So welcome to everyone. My name is Dr. Angela Searcy, and oh my gosh, I've been an educator since 1990. Me and my husband have 4 children, ages 24 to 14, and I am the author of Push Past It, A Positive Approach to Challenging Classroom Behaviors, and I'm also a consultant and, and as also an adjunct instructor. And I'm so excited that you're going to join me today. First, we're going to, just think about the idea of analyzing phrases such as "I'm bored" and what they might mean in this new normal. Then I'm going to share with you some, very practical strategies to help us to validate and then to also, transform those challenging behaviors with just some calming responses. All right. So under normal circumstances, boredom is the spark that ignites creativity and curiosity. But with many states under the shelter in place orders, these are not normal circumstances. So in chapter 7 of my book, I help readers to analyze different phrases, typical phrases that children say, and help us to really dig under the surface to understand what children are actually meaning. You have to remember that children, as well as teenagers, are still describe their emotions. Very young children have limited vocabulary. But even when you work with older children, I don't know. All right. Yeah. Can you relate to that? It's often said over and over again that as adults are taking the time to truly analyze and understand any potential hidden messages, especially during a time that we're going through like now, where there's so many changes and, children they might be feeling as though they're, don't have control over their environment right now. So phrases such as, just some examples that I have is "don't look at me." Okay. And often "don't look at me" could be a signal that a child's ashamed, like "don't look at me right now." Or it could be a sign that they're feeling vulnerable. Okay. And, vulnerability can come from that phase. So this is really all about us hearing children, analyzing our conversations, and looking to see what's underneath the surface. "I hate you" may actually mean I hate the situation that we're in. Or "I don't know." Like I said, you hear that all the time. And you're like, "Why did you do this? What is going on? What are you feeling?" "I don't know" can be a way to say, "You know what? I don't know how to describe what I'm feeling." Or it could be for a child, "Well, I don't know how to share what I'm feeling because I'm not driven by logic. So don't know how to talk about all these feelings in a logical way." So, a couple of things as we kind of break down what, this meaning behind "I'm bored" could actually be saying is "I'm scared. I want to be close to you." Do you have a child that's clinging to you right now? Okay. Or it could be that, "I don't know how to express the sadness and the loss that I'm feeling." And so "I'm bored" means I just don't know what to do with everything that I'm feeling right now. So a few weeks ago, Gwyneth Paltrow actually shared some ideas about how to cope during this time, during the pandemic. And she mentioned, during this time, use it to write a book, or what was the other thing she said, or, learn a new language. That was the other one that she said. And my thought was, and a few people's thoughts, not just mine, is it was criticized because didn't seem as though she was in tune to what everyone was feeling. And that's where we don't want to do this. I love Gwyneth Paltrow, but we kind of using her as an example, because any one of us could make the mistake that she did. That we're kind of, giving this kind of blanket response. Well, when I was a kid, boredom was good, or this is good for you, and not really tuning in to what's really happening right now. This is something that's unprecedented. So some of our usual kind of go-to statements might not really, hit home at this time. They could feel dismissive for children and make them, and potentially can leave them more frustrated and make them feel more helpless. So what we want to do is make sure that we're actually giving response that validate emotions. Talk about accepting emotions. And we might feel negative, right? Raise your hand. You might be feeling negative, confused, overwhelmed, but not staying in that state, and helping children to be able to manage all those feelings. So I actually had a post that I shared, and it had over, oh my gosh, I think it was like 5,000 responses. It had 57,000 shares. And my response was, after I was listening to the news and hearing things on the radio and hearing thoughts, I was just feeling really overwhelmed by them. And it almost was having the opposite response that I think was intended. And so my response was, there's no silver lining here. This is bad. And let's just acknowledge that it's bad. We'll be there for each other, but this is bad. There's find the goodness. And I was just having a hard time being in that space. And so I shared this definition of toxic positivity. And I know some people are like, oh, brother, another. You hear toxic all the time. It's almost a new buzzword for stuff that we don't really like. We call it toxic. So I know some of you might be tired of the phrase, but it was actually, the post was written by Tang Law Mental Health. And I didn't want to miss stating who gave this great definition. And so I'm going to read it out to you. And in their posting, Tang Long Mental Health described toxic positivity as an excessive overgeneralization of optimism in a situation, and a minimization and invalidation of genuine human emotional experience. And people really resonated with that. And so when I thought about that in terms of children, I really thought we do that to children, don't we? We try to say things like, we think that are helpful, like, oh, it'll be okay. Or look on the bright side, it could be worse, those kinds of statements. And for some children, it's not helpful. So after I shared that post, I want to share with you what one person said that really kind of touched my heart and my spirit. And this woman was actually said that she was going through treatment for cancer. And she heard these comments as she was going through her treatments, such as, keep your chin up. And she thanked me for that post and sharing that, because it seemed to her as if no one was truly interested in what she was feeling. And so when we hear children say, I'm bored, right? That really we could take this opportunity to really make sure there's no hidden message. and to really kind of accept what they're feeling for a minute and feel feelings with them. And even though they're feeling maybe a negative feeling, that's not bad, that negative feelings are feelings, and that we could take them in, we can share them with others without them rejecting us. And then we could process them with that person. And so, before I share some practical strategies, some people are like, oh, that's what I came for. I am going to share some of those. I wanted to also share some more ideas, and these come from Brené Brown. And if you've heard of Brené Brown, she shares such great ideas. She has like a whole podcast going during this time. And she has an idea about empathy. And that's where we want to think about where we're responding to children or adults. Is that empathy means that I'm just with you, right? And I'm down there with you like, I get it. I've been bored too, right? You're right there with them. And if you've said, boredom is good, buddy, don't feel guilty. This isn't a shaming opportunity, right? This is the time like, oh man, I'm doing this wrong too. No, it's not that. It's just giving you a different perspective of like, let me get there with you. I've been bored too. And when I was bored, this is what I felt. And then this is what I did. And it's just taking in that time to validate what children might be feeling. Take that in, feel it with them. Ask them if they want a solution. Maybe they don't want a solution. Maybe they do want a solution. Maybe they want a listening ear. Maybe they want a hug. And then once you get that, say, hey, it isn't always that we have to solve everything, but it isn't that we have to be dismissive either. You're not going to be perfect, but this is a great time to kind of just reflect on how we can just give those great responses, especially considering everything that's going on at this time. So, thinking about a good one is like thinking about a time that this happened to you and how you got past it. What did you do? It's not exactly the same situation, but it could be a similar one that you're going through, that you've gone through as well. Okay. Or someone that has gone through. It could also be a great time if you have a teenager to pull out some information on maybe a celebrity that went through something. And then you say, hey, you really like Selena Gomez. Did you know this about her? Because she's also had some hard times. Or, oh, you really like Lizzo. So let me share this with you about Lizzo, because she talked about how she was bullied, or she talked about how that made her feel bad or feel negative. So it's a good time to connect with children. That's what makes them feel better. It's not necessarily bombarding them with a ton of activities. You're bored? I got something for you to do. I got some dishes right over here. How many people have said that? All right, me included. Mm-hmm. So it's not just that, but also just connecting, making children feel heard is huge. So for those who are like, okay, Angela, I'm going to connect, I'm going to validate, I'm going to ask questions, I'm not going to assume. Now what do I do? Because it sounds like my child is constantly within this kind of negative or frustrated cycle. And yes, it's okay to be negative, but it may not be healthy to stay negative, So then how do we get them past that and be able to push? So one thing is I share, and we're going to share this in the comments, so you guys will get links to all of this, is a coping wheel. So I shared an example of a coping wheel. And so a coping wheel, I kind of gave a little recipe for it and where you could download the free kind of coping strategies. Is where you could make one with your child, write down all their coping strategies. An easy way to make it is to actually use 2 paper plates. On the paper, first on a piece of paper, write down the coping, like go for a walk, do a dance, look at nature, go outside, do something fun together, do a TikTok. And then write them on a paper plate at the bottom. Then put the other paper plate on top and then cut it out and then kind of spin it. You'll have to put like a pin to hold it all together. And then you could just say, hey, we felt this way. We're feeling frustrated. I wonder if it's time for us to get the coping wheel and choose which one. It could be silly things like take, deep breaths or do some jumps or laugh, find some jokes, whatever you can do to to be able to give that support and strategies. Another idea, because some kids are scared, right? I'm bored could just mean I'm scared. And so children like to just be heard and then do an activity with them. So one of the activities that you'll see is that I shared, they're like these monster swatters for flies. So it's a fly swatter. You take a regular fly swatter and then you decorate it. You put like monster, you draw on it with a permanent marker or you tape things to it. And so the fly swatter just swats away monsters. And so you could have this fly swatter under the bed, or you could make a fly swatter if you don't have one in the house to swat away the scary feelings. So you can have those feelings and then swat, 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 swat. And then put it, someplace special and then take it out when it's needed. Just those ideas that are tangible. You could do something where you have a ball and then you write down coping strategies and bounce, some strategies around as you think about them. So those are some great things to think about to kind of like help children to be able to cope. Another one is an anxiety eater. Oh, yes. An anxiety eater is so easy to make. You get like a sock and then you cut it out. It's just like you would do a sock puppet. And then you cut out where the mouth would be in your sock. And then you write down all the things that are making you anxious, right? Or you write it down for your child. Or if they can't talk yet very well and describe things that make them anxious, then you kind of give that language like, oh man, you seem like you get anxious when I, do this. If I leave your side, you're anxious. And so these are some good ways to teach those. 2-year-olds can learn those words. Like every time I leave you, you seem anxious. And then keep saying it. Every time I go here, you seem anxious. We need the anxious eater. And then take out the sock. And then let's write down anxious. And then draw anxious or write it down. And then say, hum, hum. And even a 2 or 3-year-old will just start laughing and you'll see their affect change. You'll make a connection with them. If you have to do what I'm doing now, which is working while you have children and they're e-learning and they're around the house, is that you have them hold the anxious eater while you're working. And then you give them little pieces of paper and and you may hear some humps, right? So you might have to keep them quiet. And then they eat all the anxiety while you're working. They feel anxious when you're not right next to you. That's why they're acting like babies right now. You're like, you know how to do this. It's because of that we're just in a new normal. And then they're just being able to deal with all of this. And it's a lot to deal with. Okay. I also shared some other ideas, such as a social emotional kit, some ideas of like some cards that you can purchase for like emotions and talking about emotions. So some things are definitely things that are easy around the house that you can make. Some things are some suggestions if you wanted to, he's like, oh, I just want to get this. Having a mirror out is also a great way to validate, talk about emotions, and explain a little bit of the meaning behind them and how to cope with them. So we talked about, let me look here. We talked about bad dreams. We talked about anxiety. We talked about looking at your own past to think about what kinds of things make you resilient. We talked about looking at celebrities or their favorite singer and thinking about ways to help them connect to things that made them resilient. So I hope that you got some great ideas today. Please keep our discussion going. This is just the beginning. If you met, it's first time you meeting me. Oh, we're going to be best friends. So I want to share that you can share comments. This in this live, you'll be able to kind of comment. I see some already. You'll also be able to comment with me if you want to connect with me on social media, as I mentioned. You can, contact me. My name is Angela Searcy, so I'm on all social media like Twitter and LinkedIn. I'm also on Facebook, so you can connect with me there. So I hope that we keep this conversation going, and that you feel held and connected during this time. Thank you so much for everyone that joined in and listened to me today. And I hope that you share these ideas and you stay safe and stay well. Thank you.